Welcome to Crime and Plastic, a gripping podcast where I, Dr. Miami, one of the world's top plastic surgeons, and my co-host,
Santina,
the amateur true crime researcher, delve into the often unseen world where true crime and plastic surgery intersect. Each week, I share my expertise and insights into the complex world of cosmetic procedures, while Santina
gives you the shocking details of criminal investigations.
From notorious criminals undergoing drastic transformations to evade the law,
to even our own personal encounters with true crime and plastic surgery,
all will be uncovered.
So sit back, relax,
Or don't,
because this is
Crime and Plastic. Welcome back to Crime and Plastic, Rosie. How was your week?
It was great. I was away last week.
Me too.
I met my niece.
I met my granddaughter.
She's the same person.
Such a good baby.
I'm a fan.
And
of
what
her.
do you do, Santina?
I didn't meet your niece and grandbaby.
Did you do anything interesting?
No, I just worked at Bellows.
Oh, nice. I've got some world news. Music. Crime and Plastic Weekly World News Minute. That should take less than a minute. That's enough music. Plenty of music there. Well, for the second time this year, an acquaintance plastic surgeon friend of mine, is in prison.
It's not funny.
This weekly update is so fun. Like, that's enough music. Well, another one of my friends is in prison. Imagine you turn on like CNN or Fox News and that's what you see. That's enough music. Well, another president's in prison.
It's a very professional news minute.
I'm an amateur newscaster.
Yes.
Oh, we got it.
Ron Burgundy in the flesh.
Dr. Tazi, who's one of the most famous plastic surgeons in the Arab world for sure, right? With millions of followers on Facebook and other social media. He specializes in large volume liposuction and weight loss surgeries, right? He has his own hospital in Morocco. Him, his wife, and a few accomplices, allegedly, have been in prison for the past year and a half. I didn't even know about this till this week. So it's news to me.
Yeah.
So it's not news to the world, but it's news to me. And
Probably news to most of the world. I don't know how on top of the...
I mean, as soon as I started Googling, there's a whole bunch of articles in the Moroccan news about it. Our hearts go out to him and his family.
What? He's in prison.
Well, I allegedly, I hope he's innocent.
His son wrote a whole post that like his dad has been
Wrongly
accused. And basically they've been in prison for like a year and a half and they keep like delaying their trial. So it's like they're kind of like just stuck in prison.
And they haven't been able to see each other, husband and wife, and they seized their bank accounts.
Yeah.
And,
okay, but what are they accused of?
Fraud.
And?
Human trafficking.
Not human trafficking like you're thinking of, like kidnapping children and selling them on the market. I think it's more they were finding people who needed plastic surgery, like had deformities.
Like reconstructive
surgery, and then going to donors to donate money for the surgery for these people. And they're saying that they were like saying the cost of the surgery was more than it was. So they were just kind of like defrauding donors for money for surgery for these minors who had deformities.
But how's that human trafficking?
I guess because they took them from one country to another. I think it's not like you think of human trafficking, like you said. It's some legal thing that they use to catch them in the fraud, allegedly. And I do hope he's innocent. Well, that's the world news for this week.
Wow.
Can we go into the actual Crime and Plastic podcast? Who's got the story this week? Rosie?
Nope.
Sam Rizzle's got the story.
Sam Rizzle with the scoop.
Okay.
Yes.
Today's story is controversial.
Mm-hmm.
I only come in with the controversial pieces. I say that because there's like a camp of people who appreciate this plastic surgeon, and then there's a camp of people who think that he's just like terrible.
Butcher.
A butcher, yes. His nickname is Butcher Brown.
Butcher Brown?
Yep.
Never heard of him.
I thought you heard of all these stories.
No, this one I didn't hear.
This one's pretty famous, honestly. Like a lot of people have covered it.
And a lot of people in the comments have requested us to do this story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's probably the first infamous plastic surgeon.
Well, I'm all ears.
You're the second. Got him. Okay. So today we will be talking about John Ronald Brown. John Ronald Brown was born on July 14th, 1922. He was the son of a Mormon physician. He grew up in a large family, a lot of siblings, and they lived first in Arizona and then at some point moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, the Mormon Mecca.
Zion.
So John was super smart growing up. He like breezed through school. He even graduated high school at 16 years old. And like later on, he says that he never picked up a book to study because he had a photographic memory. But like he became like a doctor, and I'm not sure that that's a flex. Like I want my doctor to pick up a book.
Right.
I want my doctor to know what letters look like.
Well, the fact that he has a photographic memory means he had to look at the book at least once. He doesn't have to like go
Pick it up again.
over and over again.
Okay, well,
That's a cool gift to have, though.
I don't believe like half the people who say they have that.
I have a photographic memory. I just don't have any film.
Jail. Anyway, that joke was brought to you by Bellows Film Lab, our sponsor. Okay, anyway.
And Crocs. The best Crocs on earth are Crocs.
Okay, so he graduated high school at 16, and then by the 1940s, when World War II came, he ended up being one of the people that was drafted.
Everybody was drafted.
Well, no, it was by birthday. It wasn't? Oh, no,
World
that's
War
a
II?
Vietnam War. I'm lying. Anyway, he was drafted to war, and he took an Army General Classification test to see like where they would place him in the military.
Yeah.
And he scored so high that they just sent him off to medical school.
Great.
They're like, we don't need you. Go study. So they sent him, and he ended up graduating from the University of Utah School of Medicine in 1947.
Wow.
This is all surprising considering
Where the
his
story
future.
goes.
Well, yeah. So he worked as a general practitioner for 2 decades and like had a pretty clean record. During that time, he found a wife named Helen, and they had 5 kids.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Eventually, like after the 5 kids and about a decade, she ended up leaving him for his best friend.
Ooh.
Got him.
That'll leave a mark.
Yep. And he soon remarried and had a second wife and 3 more children with her. So at this point, he's at 8 and counting. Toward the end of these 2 decades, so around 1970, end of 1960, beginning of 1970, he had a case that would change his professional trajectory. He basically was removing a patient's thyroid, and the patient almost died. And it was like the first time he had ever experienced like death around a patient, and it freaked him out, and he decided he needs to go back to school.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said he was a general
I
practitioner.
had the same question.
and
Yeah.
He's taking out a thyroid?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, it was 1960 something. I think that's just shit they did.
They
I mean,
did-
I've heard of general practitioners taking out appendixes and delivering babies in like rural areas. They used to do that back in the day. But a thyroid, that requires a little bit more advanced.
Yeah, it's in a very important spot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'll learn
mean-
that he thinks that he can pretty much do anything.
I mean, if you have a surgical atlas and you know the anatomy and you have steady hands, you could probably do it in a pinch. But
Right. It's not like your first choice who you would choose
no,
to do your surgery.
you'd want somebody who does thyroids all the time.
Well, this was the 60s. I don't know if the options were there.
Okay.
Okay.
Plus, he was like a war. I don't know, whatever. So he was like, that scared him. He was like, I need to study more. Like, I need to know more about the human body. So he ends up going to study plastic surgery at New York Columbia's Presbyterian Hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he went for a residency
Yeah,
after that.
so he was like,
oh.
So
Good.
after that, he was like, oh, no, like that didn't go well. Like, I want to practice surgery. So he goes, he does that.
How does that work if you want to kind of do that switch from
So in the
Switch to
60s,
surgery
in
and
the
stuff.
60s, you can do that. You can go to, I mean, anyone can apply to a residency position, but the residencies were just getting going
Okay.
in the 50s and 60s. The whole idea of surgical subspecialties came pretty much after World War II.
So you just would apply?
You'd apply.
So today, if you're an internal medicine doctor, you decide like 10 years later you want to do surgery.
You can, of course, yeah.
You just apply
Uh-huh.
to. So how do you like not do the whole matching thing?
No, you do. You go through the match. Usually you find the positions that were not in the match. Like if a position went unmatched, then you can scramble for it. And then there were certain programs like Millard's program who thought he was too good to go into the match. So like there are certain,
Okay.
people that were too good for the matching system and you get them outside the match.
All right. So basically, he decided to do a little career switch.
But NYU, you said?
No, he went to New York, Columbia. He did
Columbia. That's a good place.
Presbyterian Hospital.
Yeah, that's a good place.
Okay. He did his years there. And then when it came time for him to take the test to be certified,
Uh-huh.
he passed the written exam, but he didn't pass the oral exam, so he wasn't given his surgical certification.
Yeah, there's two parts to it.
And apparently, he just like blamed his father for this. He was like, my father's domineering like attitude, it like haunted me and it like shook me, and that's why I couldn't pass the oral exam.
Okay.
Like, okay, weirdo.
You know, you can take it again.
No, he said fuck it.
But if you don't pass the board certification, doesn't mean you can't do surgery.
Oh, you
That's
can
what I
still
was gonna
practice, of
ask. It's
course,
a
yeah.
board, right?
Yeah.
Because like everywhere I was reading, or like kind of the podcast I would listen to, they were saying like, oh, he was like unlicensed. He was, but no, he was
No.
just not certified.
Correct. He was even board eligible. Like you can get plastic surgery privileges in any hospital just by being board eligible,
Right.
even if you're not board certified.
So it's just like a higher classification, but it doesn't mean you can't do surgery. It's not like
Correct.
illegal to do
Right.
surgery without it.
No. I mean, you've already passed your training and everything.
Right.
Usually people get their board certification once they're in training for a few years, at least in America.
So what do you have to do at the end of residency? Is there like a test to pass that you pass residency?
No, every year you have what's called an in-service exam.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not.
Is there like a final one at the end of like the 7 years?
but you're graded with your peers on your percentile.
Do they ever say people can't pass? Or
No, but you know,
they just say
it's-
they're wholly unreliable. They're not wholly reliable.
Yeah, exactly. They give them bad letters of recommendation.
So that they can't get jobs.
harder to get jobs and postgraduate fellowships and things like that.
But you still get your You still have
get
your license.
You still have your license, yeah.
So if you're a shit resident and you're like not good, you still get your license
Yeah.
at the end?
Why do you think we have all these crime and plastic episodes?
Yeah, that's what happened to Dr. Death.
Yeah, you can get kind of pushed along. Now it's rare. Like there's not that many Dr. Deaths because usually they get washed out. Somebody just pulls them aside and says, "Listen, this field's not for you,"
Okay.
and then they go into something else: anesthesia, radiology, something different.
Then surgery.
Yeah.
Continue, Salrizzle.
Well, since we're going off on tidbits, there's this fun fact, which I don't think either one of you is going to know, but perhaps my Gen Z audience will.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like he grew up in Utah, whatever. He's Mormon.
Right.
His niece is the founder of LuLaRoe leggings. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
It's like the first like female kind of MLM.
Multi-level marketing.
Like, but it's so famous. Like LuLaRoe's bitches on Instagram, like you just know. Like they would reach out to you like, "Hey girly, haven't heard from you since high school. Do you want to sell these leggings?" And the legging prints are like fucking horrific. It was like Monet before Monet.
We should show pictures of these.
Oh, they're terrible. Anyway, he's related to her, which is like such a small Mormon world.
Such a small world.
It's a small world. Anyway,
So,
so he was not certified. We're going on.
but he finished his residency.
He finished the residency.
Okay.
And he wasn't certified, but he was like, there was like a quote later where he was like, I didn't like the rules that they had for doctors. So I said, fuck it. And then I didn't like the way the government was enforcing the rules. So I just stopped following the laws altogether. Something like that. He was just like, he didn't like rules. He was
Okay.
like one of those people who was like,
And that's why he blamed his father, because his father was domineering or something. And
Probably.
So he felt like he had to rebel.
this is 70s. Everyone's like on some hippie shit. So
Free love.
anyways, he's like, I don't care about this. Fuck a certification. I'm gonna do me. And he ends up going to like the most like intricate like specialty, which is gender affirming surgery
In the 70s?
in the 70s
Oh,
when there was
he's
like
an
literally
OG.
nothing. There was
Yeah.
like barely anything there.
Yeah.
How do you decide that? Like, how do you get into it? You just decided, or
He
did he
just-
have a patient? Or
No,
he's just like, let me pick the hardest surgery
he
to
just
do.
picked that one because there was another guy at the time who was like coming up for like penis enlargement surgeries or something like that, and he took some methods from it and decided like he could create his own technique
Mhm.
that would not just like he did a lot of male to female transitions, not just like
Male to female.
male to female.
Okay.
This is Brown.
Brown,
with this.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
the opposite of
So he took like,
that's opposite of penis enlargement though.
but what he took the technique and he basically was able to like preserve the nerves of the penis and
Oh.
like transform it into a clitoris.
Nice.
So
The pudendal nerve.
So he learned this from the penis enlargement guy.
yeah,
He met him,
it
or
was just
he
like
studied,
studies and like they would have like conventions like
but he didn't like actually like mentor with
No,
him or
no, no.
go like see it live or anything. He just read the studies.
that's like a lot of the things that came out like with him is that he
He just thought he could read it and do it.
would basically experiment on his patients. It's
Uh.
really so sad, but there's a lot of people who are really happy with his work. Like later you'll see like a lot of his patients would like advocate for him when he was being
Okay.
charged with things because they thought he was like,
Their hero.
yeah. So really in the 1970s, he was huge in like the transgender community because at that point, like gender affirming surgery was very spare. Like it was like literally not happening. And then when it was happening, it was hard to get because you had to like pass all these clearances, take hormones, like get a psychiatric test. And then it was like super expensive. So he was doing it for like the low.
Did they say how much it was then? Are there any?
So some of them he charged like $600.
Oh, wow.
This was in San Francisco, California in the 1970s. And then other patients he would like barter for, like they would help him in surgeries. Like they would become like surgical assistants to barter for their surgery.
Was that surgery in the 70s, was it legal to do it then?
It
Or
was legal to do it,
It
yeah.
was legal
I
to
mean,
do?
it's any surgeries.
No, I'm saying because you had to go through.
You have to go
you're
through
right.
so much,
You
but
can
like
pay
that's-
anybody to do anything
I'm saying, but
to your body.
But
But
just-
I
yeah, you
mean,
can.
but-
You could pay the person in the back room to give you butt shots too. I mean,
Correct,
you know,
correct.
but that's not legal. Like, did
Well,
you need
that's
to be?
practicing medicine without a license.
Yeah,
But
I'm
if a
saying,
doctor did the butt shots, it would be legal. But then
depending
they would
on
have-
what he did,
But then there would be civil recourse. They could sue for malpractice because saying that you shouldn't have done that.
right?
But it wouldn't be criminal.
Right.
Right.
So that's exactly the case with this guy. So just to give you like an example of how hard it was to get like gender affirming surgery from not this guy, the program at Johns Hopkins Hospital, all the gender affirming surgery that was happening were like in studies. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't very elective. It was more like
I mean, it was
like they were-
elective, but it was hard to get. I know that.
no,
from
it
when I
wasn't
was
like
a
you couldn't
resident,
walk
they
into a
taught-
plastic surgery center and be like, I want gender affirming
No,
surgery.
there were very few surgeons doing it. Johns Hopkins was doing it. I think University of Pittsburgh was one.
but they were
place.
all for studies on like body dysmorphia, gender dysmorphia.
Oh,
So, like for example, with the Johns Hopkins one, 2,000 people approached them, and they only approved 24 for surgery.
correct. It was very hard, but that's not so much because of necessarily research, but because they had very, very strict criteria for who qualified for it. Like you said, they had psychiatric hoops you had to jump through.
So that's what my question was about: legal or not legal. If you had to go through all these like criteria, how come anyone could do it then?
No, it's just that was the quote unquote standard of care.
Okay, got it.
Just like we do a lot of extra testing that we do these days
Right.
to avoid getting sued, like we do blood tests that we
Right,
probably
right.
don't need and whatever.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, like the technical difficulty of this surgery,
In 1970, whatever, a 10 out of 10.
even today, isn't it?
It's a 7 or 8 out of 10 now. But then it was a 10 out of 10 for sure.
So how many doctors do you think did it? Like
In the
5?
whole yeah, like less than 5.
When was the first surgery done? Like,
That is a good question. I don't have the answer. Off
I
the
don't
top
have
of
the
my
answer
head.
either.
but it was around then, right? It was like,
I would imagine somewhere in the 60s and 70s.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think these surgeries were only happening like within the confines of research because he was like forced to kind of operate not in an OR. He would operate in motel rooms, garages.
Well, that's why he charged $600. Now I get it.
So he did it with like low anesthesia
No, he would use anesthesia.
by himself?
Local anesthesia.
Local.
anesthesia.
Local anesthesia in a motel room.
That is not a surgery under
No.
local anesthesia.
But apparently he had great results.
Well, I
Okay.
wouldn't.
Some people had great results.
I think that $600 as the price point is probably a red flag.
But really,
But
the
they were
$600 was
desperate.
not. It's not just that they were desperate, but like the $600, like the way he was kind of making it seem was like he was doing this as like a social benefit. Like it wasn't for money's
No
sake.
profit whatsoever.
Like he literally said it was like divine, like his purpose.
wow.
And the trans community loved him for it. They thought he was like a knight in shining armor. They called his house,
Add a character for Mormon.
right? I
Right?
thought that too.
Well, his father was domineering.
They
No,
called
I'm saying like the Mormon church, and then his divine calling was to help the transgender community. It was,
He's a complex man. This
yeah. Did he have his own
John.
like legitimate practice that he was doing? Like
no, just this.
just this?
and they called his house, quote, the house of dreams, end quote.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but the House of Dream was obviously not very sanitary and very and very shocking. Also, apparently he wasn't very hygienic looking, like physically. His scrubs are always dirty. His hair was like messy. And on one account, he like walked into a patient's room after surgery with just one shoe on, and they were like, "Where the fuck is your second shoe?" And then like later on, they
Did he have an assistant? He just did it all himself.
I told you so he would barter sometimes for surgery too, like with transgender patients, like if they didn't have the money or whatever, he would basically train them to help him in surgery, and then that would be their payment for their surgery.
Oh, wow.
But this is also like,
You know, when you mentioned the one shoe on, one shoe off, blood all over the place, there was a guy who practiced for like 30 years across the street who did
Yeah.
gender affirming care.
Yeah.
And I never operated with him, but anesthesiologist would tell me that he would use like regular gloves,
Oh, not surgical gloves?
not surgical gloves. In their defense, that area of the body, it's never really 100% sterile. Like you can't really clean that area well enough for it to be, it's like clean but not sterile.
Okay.
So maybe he felt that there was
Was
so
it-
imagine
it's
how less
unnecessary.
clean it was.
It's like if you operate in the mouth, you can never make it completely sterile, or the nose.
So anyway, okay, so during the 70s, like early 70s, not only was he like accepted by the transgender community because he was offering like, you know, this care to them,
Like free almost.
almost free, yeah, and sometimes free. He was also like professionally like renowned. Like other doctors were kind of amazed by him because he created this miniaturization technique where he would basically shave the penis down to the size of a clit and then form the rest of the vagina. So not only did the vagina look like a vagina, but it maintained the same sensation that like a clit would have, which he presented in February of 1973 at the second interdisciplinary symposium on gender dysphoria syndrome. And it was well received. And he ends up teaming up with this guy named James Spence. And they like get all these urologists,
Proctologist?
Proctologist.
and internists. And their goal was to create like
A multidisciplinary.
like the finest sex change facility anywhere. So they like,
Not in the House of Dreams.
no, well, not in Dr. Brown's house, like in a real facility. So they together like approach these people probably that they met at this forum. And also they approach a reporter from Time magazine named Paul Chiotti. And they host this dinner at Spence's house, this guy James Spence's house.
Was he a doctor, James Spence?
No,
Okay.
but he had a criminal record. And Spence is like telling all of these doctors like, oh, Brown's technique is like revolutionary. It allows for fully orgasmic clitorises and realistic looking vaginas. He's like talking it all up. And then at some point at dinner, James Brown takes out a pear like the fruit.
Oh.
I thought you meant his balls.
No. He takes out a pear and then just starts like basically mocking the procedure like on a pear.
Right. Like showing how it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know whatever happened at that dinner, but a couple weeks later, John Brown calls Chiotti, the guy from the Time magazine, and he's like, please don't publish that story with my name. Because apparently like him and Spence had some falling out, and then Spence was talking like the house of shit about him, and like I think kind of exposing the fact that he wasn't like certified and all this stuff.
Okay.
And that he was doing it in the House of Dreams.
Yeah.
In
And
his
remember
own
this guy
house.
Paul, because he'll come back later in the story.
Okay. Paul the reporter.
Yes.
Okay.
But still, this didn't stop his dream. He ends up like teaming up with a lot of these like transgender activists. One woman, Wendy Davidson, she was attempting to organize peer clinics run by transgender people. He teamed up with this woman, Donna Colvin, who was another trans activist. Later, Donna would report that she was like working in his clinic, and she reported that she would see him shooting up Valium before surgery.
Shooting up Valium?
Valium, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Not
then
good.
she also saw him perform
Where was his clinic? His house? You mean?
in San Francisco.
Oh, so he had an actual clinic?
Yeah.
So why did he do procedures there?
But it wasn't really a clinic. Like it would change. Like there was even reports that he did surgery like on a train once. Like he was,
This guy's wild.
yeah. So Donna reported that she saw him performing surgery on a kitchen, in hotel rooms, like a lot of.
Why?
He would do consultations at his house. Like he would bring patients to his house. He would go to the patient's house.
What did his wife think of all this? Did he
This
have
is his
a-
divine mission. Didn't you hear what he...
His
I-
wife actually helped set up like the surgeries.
Oh, she was like a surgical assistant?
yes, she like scheduled the surgeries.
Okay.
Wow.
But he was just doing a lot of
But
shady
he could
shit.
have just done it legitimately. I
No,
don't understand.
I don't think he could. I think that during this time, gender affirming surgery was only being done through like research. Like he had to be approved.
Oh,
Like he would have to
okay.
be on a research team to be undertaking this kind of.
Okay. Okay. All right. Then
Oh, you
that
mean,
makes
you mean
sense.
it was like experimental?
Like it
And you
wasn't.
had to be in... Now I understand
It's
what
like
you
a-
said. It was experimental. And you had to be in like a... what do you call that?
like
Human...
an IRB.
IRB, an
like
Institutional Review
approved.
Board approved study.
Mhm. Okay.
he was doing a lot of shady shit. This guy. He also toward the end of the 1970s, he was like misrepresenting the surgeries on insurance forms.
Ooh.
Look at how he did it though. It was kind of smart. And to me, it checks out. He marked it as a quote, like as the quote, congenital absence of a vagina. Congenital means from birth.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
That is clever.
That is clever.
That is clever.
Right?
That, by the way, that is a very high ticket item. That insurance would pay a lot of money for that.
Oh, so he was making insurance money.
Yeah, he was making some money. Hello? He had to live. He had
No,
8
but
children.
that code for that procedure is probably, I don't know what it is now, but it was at least 10 grand, I would imagine.
How many people are born without a vagina?
Not that many. And that operation is 10 out of 10. And so,
So
the
didn't that
insurance would pay-
alert them that he had a disproportionate amount of
I don't even know if they had
you know?
they had a computer system
to
sophisticated enough to like track
flag
it,
that?
to flag it. You know,
Okay.
in the
That is very clever.
In 1973, they had no computer system to flag that for sure.
So like at first in the beginning of the 1970s when he started this undertaking, he was like, loved by the community, but toward the end of this decade, he was named like Butcher Brown. Like within the trans community, they were like, stay away from him. And yet people would still go because they really had like no other options. But this is when we really start to see like complications with patients. He had a patient named Julie. She sued him because after surgery with him, she was left neither male nor female.
Ooh.
Like
It
a
was-
Ken doll?
Barbie doll
doll?
is also, neither. It's called
Barbie has boobs.
a permanent
Colostomy.
colostomy.
Oh, so they really screwed up the anus. then.
Yeah, he fucked up everything.
They couldn't.
And apparently this
a
happened-
permanent colostomy.
Yeah, this happens to 70 of his patients.
70?
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's not good.
And she sued him for $7 million, but it ended up settling outside of court for much less. But it settled for enough for, quote, psychiatric care for the rest of her life and a new operation.
Right.
There was like this UC San Diego plastic surgeon who fixed about 15 of his cases. And he said that like this man was a disaster. He said, quote, he's a terrible, appalling technical surgeon. There's no way to describe it. He doesn't know how to make a straight incision. He doesn't know how to hold a knife. He has no regard for limiting blood loss.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it on a train, it's kind of hard to limit
That's
blood loss.
Crazy.
The San Diego surgeon may have been jealous. He may just be talking shit.
What?
I would want to see pictures to, confirm or deny.
It was a 15. He fixed 15 of his fucked up surgery.
How many surgeries did he
Who
do?
knows?
So they said in the 25 years that he practiced, he did 600 surgeries.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how many surgeries have you done in 20 years?
No, I'm saying 20,
Thousands.
25.
600.
600, I mean.
600, yeah.
No, I'm saying, so if you said at Johns Hopkins they were doing like 25 a year,
And he was doing 600.
that's a lot.
No, but 625 years.
Okay,
No, but he
still.
didn't do this. He didn't do it his whole career. He was like a regular surgeon. He said for like
No,
but
but he did surgery for he did surgery until he was like 70 something.
Really?
Yeah, he kept going. Wait, guys, he kept going. This
Wait,
guy's
so
wild.
he did 600, and at least 15 needed to be corrected by this guy.
Yeah.
And you said there were
At
70.
the end of 600, 70 of them had permanent colostomies.
70?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a
Oh,
lot.
I didn't realize 70 had permanent colostomies.
And this
Yeah.
guy fixed 15.
That's like more than 10%? 15%?
By 1977, California caught up with him, and the Board of Medical Quality Assurance revoked his medical license entirely following the death of one patient and then the lawsuit from another, which was
Oh.
Julie.
Who died? How'd they die?
I don't know. It's not like anywhere.
Right.
They said it was revoked for, quote, gross negligence, incompetence, and practicing unprofessional medicine in a manner which involved moral turpitude, end quote.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look, he doesn't. So he ends up moving to St. Lucia.
I went on my honeymoon there. Beautiful island, by the way.
And in St. Lucia, he meets his third wife because by this time, his second wife died of cancer.
Oh.
At this point, it's 1981.
Mm-hmm.
He's 59. Does anyone want to guess how old his third wife is?
22.
37.
17.
Oh, my Lord.
No.
What? So he's 59 and he marries a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah. On top of that, she didn't know English. He had to teach her English and how to read and write. They end up having 2 kids together. So now the count's
Ooh.
at 10. Homeboy got 10 kids.
He's in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he keeps doing the same thing in St. Lucia, but they're like, we want none of that. So very quickly, they cut him off. And he's like, damn it. And he goes to San Diego. He
Okay.
moves back to California, San Diego,
Okay.
because he wants to be close to Tijuana.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of interesting stuff that goes
Yes.
on.
So in Tijuana, there was already like this underground, like gender affirming care that was happening.
And anything you want in the world, you can get in Tijuana.
There
Right.
was like a specific doctor who did it there.
Yeah, like he teamed up with people.
Okay.
And this is what I was saying, that when he was in Tijuana, apparently he went on like this walk and he heard God tell him it was his destiny to help transgender people. The quote is what he says later is to take care of the surgical need of God's children, the transsexuals, end quote. That was like his divine mission.
Okay.
So during this time, because
Also a red flag, though.
That God speaks to you?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
doesn't he speak to you?
not like that.
Not in full sentences.
Not in full sentences.
I
with
speak to
commas.
God, he just doesn't answer me back, like,
Okay, period.
in words.
Anyway, during this time, because there was already like an illegal market, he was like kind of looking for a customer base. So he started soliciting and
Customer
advertising surgical services in the US. Like he was basically advertising to US citizens,
base. Right.
but telling them to come to Tijuana.
Okay.
Is that illegal?
Hello? Yes, it is.
Is it? Why?
Wait, I actually I have it later.
I don't know if he's licensed in Mexico.
No, there was a legal reason why he wasn't able to do that because he ends up getting convicted for just that.
For just the advertising?
It's
For the fact that he's like bringing people.
It's a little bit like human trafficking.
Yeah. So he ends up like reaching out to like media because he wants to get like coverage on like what he's doing.
Did he ever operate on minors, by the way?
I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
So this is like mid 1980s.
Okay.
And he's like soliciting these American citizens to come to Tijuana and get surgery. At this time, he's starting like a new technique, which is actually a penis enlargement technique.
Macrozation.
Yeah. And Forum, which is a popular magazine, prints a story on him. So Forum published the article, and then Inside Edition. You guys know Inside Edition?
Wait,
Yeah.
it was around in the 80s Inside Edition?
Yeah.
Wow, that was a long time ago. Okay,
They
fine.
saw Forum's article and they were like, oh, like we want to interview this guy.
Yeah.
So they interviewed him. It first was just like supposed to be like a regular interview and it ends up turning into like this expose.
Yeah. I mean, he had his license revoked. I mean, if he did any research, right?
But what happened was like, okay, a little bit before that, he had a patient named John Lugo.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is one of the Tijuana patients.
Okay.
So in 1988, they spoke on the phone about a possible sex change operation.
Okay.
And Lugo later testified that Brown told him he had many years of experience in doing that type of surgery, and he explained everything to him.
Mhm.
Okay.
So the first step to like gender affirming surgery that John told him he should do was the jury flap surgery, which was to fix his hairline,
Okay.
to make a more feminine hairline,
Okay.
which required like 3 steps. And so John Brown, the doctor, would like drive John Lugo back and forth from like California to Tijuana. So the first round of surgery went great. He like healed well. And then he came back like in 1989 for a second round. And when he came back for the second round, John Brown, the doctor, asked if a camera crew could film the second part. And John Lugo said yes. So while they were filming this in the middle of surgery, John Lugo like wakes up and starts screaming of pain. And the camera people are like, hello. And he's like, this is normal. That's what he tells them. And they're like, what the fuck?
This is Inside Edition is filming this?
No,
Oh,
this
is
is
it different?
this is an entirely different publication that's filming this. But
Okay.
Inside Edition heard about this.
Okay.
Right.
And so, long story short, Inside Edition ends up publishing a television documentary called The Worst Doctor in America
But
about
he's not in
him.
America. He's in
Well-
Tijuana. Just so you know what this operation is, you can understand why the guy was screaming. Because men generally tend to get bald in the middle, right?
Uh-huh.
And in their front hairline. So I don't even know if this technique is used anymore, but you take a flap, all from a strip from the side as a flap, keep it attached, and then rotate it around.
So, anyway, beside the screaming, the surgery went well. He healed well.
Besides the screaming, the unfortunate screaming.
But the camera crew was like, what the fuck? And so he goes for the third surgery, and Dr. Brown gives him a consultation for liposuction, breast implants, and a facelift as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is 1988.
This is 1989.
89. Okay.
So he ends up having like that third round just a couple months after the second round. And after surgery for the first couple days, he was fine. But then on March 4th, he called Dr. Brown and told him he was having trouble walking and he didn't feel well.
Ooh.
And like Dr. Brown stopped back at Tijuana to go like see him, and everything was fine. I think he had to go to like an emergency room for a little bit, but he ended up being okay and recovering. But by mid-March, the tape of the television program had aired, and John Lugo saw it. And on the TV, they were saying that John Brown was not a licensed doctor in California anymore. And he was like, John Lugo's like, what the fuck? He totally lied to me. So in April, he contacted Gerald McKellen, an investigator with the State Board of Medical Quality Assurance, and he agreed to participate in a sting operation to gather evidence against Brown.
Okay.
Okay.
So with that, with John Lugo's...
Did he have those other surgeries, the breast implants and the facelift and everything, lipo?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, all in all, John Lugo's surgeries, he got everything. Which
And he still went and snitched on him.
well, because he's like watching, he's like recovering from surgery, and then he looks and on the TV,
Does
he
see
sees his
himself
fucking
screaming?
doctor.
Does he see himself screaming?
No, because he saw Inside Edition. Inside Edition
Oh.
didn't have the footage.
Okay,
screaming.
okay.
So
But overall, his surgery was kind of successful.
yes.
Okay.
So between that,
I mean, he didn't have a colostomy
That's
and he didn't
true,
die. So
I guess.
he should consider himself lucky.
so between that, and then between John Lugo's case, and then the fact that he was also tried in 1984. Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
In 1984, he was arrested for medical fraud because he was running these advertisements in The Advocate for penis enlargement surgeries.
Uh-huh.
But he obviously wasn't allowed to do that in the United States. So
Right.
it was like medical fraud, whatever.
Okay.
So they arrested him, but he was out on bond, and it took 4 years for him to go to trial. But by the time he went to trial, he pleaded no contest. He paid $1,000 fine and was given 4 months in prison, but he only served 30 days. That was in 1988. So by 1989, when the Board of Medical Quality Assurance is investigating this John Lugo thing, they see that he's just been arrested
Released
for
from
medical
prison.
fraud.
Yeah.
They see that his license was revoked, and they end up prosecuting him.
Hmm.
And he goes to trial, and he's sentenced to 3 years in prison. But a lot of his patients come out in support of him during the trial, and he ends up only serving 19 months. So when he gets out of prison in 1992 or 1991, he's 69 years old, and he's like, I'm gonna lay low. You better lay low. And he starts driving as a taxi driver for a year.
Okay.
After a year, he's like, I have a photographic memory.
He has this calling from God. Too.
I've had taxi drivers tell me crazy stories like this.
He's
I never
like-
believed them, but now I should.
So he's like, fuck this. I'm going back to my surgical practice in Tijuana. So he goes back to Tijuana. This is what I mean. Like, you guys are like, no, 25 years. Like, no, he like literally did not stop until he was like 70 something.
But like, why would he go back to the same place? Like, he should go
No, but
someplace new.
After California and St. Lucia, his license was also like retroactively revoked in like Alaska, Hawaii, and somewhere else. Like, they were like, oh, we heard about you. No.
Blackballed.
Like, let's say you go to prison for 10 years and then you go back to the same street corner that
People just go back to what they're familiar with.
But what I'll say
Okay.
is that in 1992, when he resumed to his surgical practice in Tijuana, he went under the name Dr. Ralph Molina.
Okay,
Oh,
at
so
least
there
he
you
changed
go.
his name.
He
Smart.
changed his name, which when you look at him, he does not look like his last name is Molina. Like, what?
That is very racist of you to say.
What?
People can have all kinds of different names.
I could see that. I'm Hispanic. Anyway, and he starts performing surgery at the New Women's Surgical Center while he's living
Wait, it's called the New
Women's
Surgical
Surgical Center.
Center in Tijuana
in Tijuana
as Ralph Molina.
as Ralph Molina, but now he's living in San Ysidro, California, instead of San Diego.
Why doesn't he just move to Mexico and live there?
I don't know. But at this point, he's just like,
He doesn't give a shit.
no, he's already gone. Like, he's already evaded the law like a million times. He's gone to
He's
jail.
done
Like,
2 stints in prison.
and this facility apparently was like grimy. Like, this is where like the grimy allegations come from. Apparently, the sewers overflowed once a day, once or twice a
Once
day.
or twice a day?
There was no clean water. But mind you, this facility is where patients are being operated on and also recovering.
This was a transgender facility, or was it just
no, it was he named it like New Women's Surgical Center.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't even enough bathrooms for like patients. And then the OR was an ordinary bedroom with an OBGYN chair.
Great.
After surgery, he would grab the patient's dried blood clotted bandages and just rip them off. And there's like this story of him like walking down the hall, just eating like raw weenies from a package.
Ew.
like inside of the,
Like a
we're-
little twisted wiener package.
I
The
think maybe
little-
it's like the Vienna sausage. I
the
don't know.
little
what it
wieners
was.
that are like all twisted and everything.
There was just
I
a
don't
quote. There was a quote that was like he was eating fucking weenies. I don't know.
Okay.
Hey, I don't really see how that's relevant to the case, but okay.
No, it
I
was
moved
just
to
this-
strike that
it
from the
was just
record.
dirty. He was having
just
like
dirty.
food.
Oh, that
and
he was
stuff.
eating it with his hands, maybe.
and in like areas that shouldn't have food
Right.
Yeah, you should not have weenies.
So
or any food.
he's doing all of this, and then 1996 comes, and he gets the first call from a New York therapist, and I can't even say this word. Okay, I'm just gonna say the layperson's term for it, which is someone who believes that they shouldn't have limbs.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
it's
I remember this.
it's an actual condition.
It's a desire to have healthy limbs amputated.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Like
it's
you want to
from
have like a hook, like a pirate
Yeah.
or a stump.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
It's
an
a-
actual thing, and there are actual people that suffer from this.
It's a
and there's
body-
actual surgeons that will do it
Wait, hold
for
on.
money.
It's a body integrity identity disorder,
Yes.
and there are rare individuals that suffer from this.
Mm-hmm.
But very few reputable surgeons are willing to treat this disorder
No.
due to its direct violation
The Hippocratic Oath.
of the Hippocratic Oath. So, in 1996 is when he gets his first call from a man named Greg Firth.
Mhm.
Now, Greg Firth is a New York child psychologist and fellow BIID sufferer, which I guess is like the shorthand, who traveled with
Body
his
integrity disorder.
body integrity identity disorder.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so Dr. Greg, this is a doctor who wanted to have this surgery done by Dr. John Brown because he knows that John Brown is like, now
Doesn't
at this
give a
point,
fuck.
John Brown is like very open minded. His philosophy is if
you
you,
got
are.
the cash, I got the trash.
No, he believed if you are a consenting adult, you should be allowed to do what you want.
But
he
now he's Ralph Molina.
he believes in body autonomy. Like if you're a consenting adult,
It doesn't sound like a new belief.
no, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
so this is just like that belief in an extreme. Like he'll
Right.
basically, he's like just known as this experimental doctor. So this
Right.
guy reaches out to him and he tells him he wants to have his
like
legs.
whatever makes you happy. Kind of like body modification today. People do these weird, what most people think is weird stuff to their body and stretch things and pierce things and whatever. So he's just like that to an extreme.
Okay.
So he
August?
calls him because he explains that him and his friend have like a yearning to have their legs amputated. His friend's name is Philip Bondi, and his friend is a retired satellite engineer. So they build up like a collection of photos, slides, and videos of male amputees and like show it to John Brown. They apparently came across John Brown on like in a newspaper, and they found him to be very open-minded. So they were like, "We'll choose you." But only Firth was going to have the surgery with John Brown.
Right.
So he goes to Tijuana,
Wow.
and when he gets there, he like suddenly like his desire disappears. Like when it's time for him to have surgery, he's like, actually,
I kind of like my legs.
I want to keep my legs. So instead, his friend Philip Bondi gets the surgery. The other person suffering from BIID.
Oh, okay.
So he has a surgery. He amputates his legs.
Both legs.
Yeah,
I hope it was below the knee. Did they say below or above the knee?
they didn't say.
Wow. There's a big difference.
I'll read you what another doctor said about it after. Whatever.
Okay.
So he amputates the leg.
Mhm.
And apparently the guy, Bondi, was like super happy with his results.
Sorry. It's not funny, but it kind of is.
But just a day later, he died of gas gangrene.
Yeah. Just like in the Civil War. Just like in the olden days.
He died in like
You
his
can't
hotel room.
you can't
right?
just
Yeah, he
amputate limbs without sterile technique and proper hygiene. That should be a sterile
So he was
operation.
super happy for a day and then he died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gas gangrene takes you down quick. I mean, I assume that
Explain it.
it's a type of bacteria that produces gas as a byproduct, but it causes you sepsis and you die.
Okay.
It spreads very quickly. But that was what most people died from any kind of surgery that you had prior to antiseptic technique and antibiotics and all that.
So he
No.
died in a California motel.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Now,
So he did it in Mexico in his whatever.
Yeah,
clinic?
because he would literally drive his patients from like Tijuana to recover in California.
Okay.
Wow.
And then he went to this hotel room and he died the next day.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
So-
they found like his wheelchair flipped, like
He was by himself?
he was by himself.
that's sad. That operation has to be done sterile, like as opposed to the genital surgery or mouth surgery, nose surgery, which can be done like clean but not sterile,
Okay.
because there's anatomically that those areas are harder to get infected. But like a knee, a bone, an open wound like that, that's easy to get infected in.
Why were you saying why were you asking about the difference above or below the knee?
So how much function you have, like if you're amputated below the knee with the prosthetic, you can go back, like there's a lot less dysfunction.
Okay,
Above the knee is a different story.
got it. So this guy dies, then what happens?
So this guy dies, and they like find John Brown fast. And they
You mean changing his name to Ralph Molina didn't throw them off the scent?
the San Diego authorities like arrest him, and they find him pretty fast. They connected, and then they were shocked to find out that Bondi had paid for the surgery. They thought it was like an involuntary, like they didn't understand that it was like a
Right.
It was a consensual like surgery.
Yeah.
I could see.
And now
that
he's
would be
he's
confusing.
dead, so you can't even testify.
Did he have people sign consents like with the risks and stuff?
I don't know. But and then on top of that, he was also having a lot of complications with like his male to female
Surgeries.
gender affirming surgery, because they were doing it through like the colon.
Yeah, that's why those guys needed colostomies, because.
But isn't that how they do it for the glands?
It's not the standard technique.
So basically what he
it's
did,
not?
he would take
Okay.
a piece of intestine,
you can do it, that
leaving
way.
it attached to the blood supply, and divert it to make a vagina.
Yes.
The problem is that your intestines digest food, secrete enzymes, they smell, and
That's not the preferred.
your
Oh, I thought
intestines
it was.
and your intestines
Not
are connected
colon.
to your vaginal lining. So in many cases, he would stitch it back to the stomach, and they would get peritonitis.
Yeah, they get infected. They'd be pooping into their peritoneum.
Yeah, so that was happening a lot in Tijuana, and then this happened with this guy. So they tried him again, and they charged him. First, it was manslaughter, and then they charged him with malice murder in the second degree, because he knew it was something that was dangerous to human life, and he did it anyway.
I think what they do now is they use the skin of the penis.
And then to like demonstrate that he had like malice, they had to prove that he had a history of being reckless. So they started
Yeah.
bringing up all this other stuff,
Right.
his past convictions.
Yeah.
Then like,
This was like his third strike in
Right.
jail too.
and then they even found like videotapes in his house of like his like surgical techniques. It would be like just skin. Like he would like basically make videos on like pieces of skin.
Right.
And like apparently like, the knives that he would use were like super dull. Like you could see like him trying to cut, like he couldn't make a straight line. Like
Oy,
it was very like reckless.
Butcher Brown.
And there was one video, it was titled Jack Has a New Piss Hole Behind His Balls. And it showed Brown cutting an opening into a man's urethra just behind his testicles so he could urinate sitting down. Like he did all this like really bad, like experimental, like unethical shit in his Tijuana time. So they got him.
Wow. So the guy wanted to keep his penis, but just piss sitting down.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically was like a gun for hire. Like whatever you want, you pay me. Yeah.
Right.
He didn't really think about the consequences so
Or
much.
any ethical considerations.
Right. And
So
and-
he was convicted. And
so like here's where so the ethical part is if an adult wants to do something to their own body, that's up to them, right?
right.
But once you engage the help of somebody else to do that to your body, that's where it becomes the ethical part.
Little murky.
That's murky.
Yeah.
It's a good term.
How long was he put to jail for?
Oh, he didn't go to jail. He's fine. He's right here, in fact.
No.
You want to do?
I'm sure he's dead. He was born in 1922.
No, yeah, he died in 2010.
Yeah, in 2010?
Yeah.
He lived to be 90? 88?
Yeah.
Damn. Did he go to prison for this last stuff?
I think he went to prison for 15 years, but he ended up dying
In prison?
in prison in 2010 from complications of pneumonia.
Not gas gangrene.
Oh, yeah. He was convicted by unanimous decision and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, but then he died of pneumonia in 2010
When was his trial?
in 1999.
Wow.
Wow.
And his attorney said he believed if you are a consenting adult, you should be allowed to do with what you want. Who is not to say that the 48 hours that Bondi lived after the surgery weren't the happiest 48 hours of his life?
I'll say that they weren't. I'll say it right now because dying of sepsis is not fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fucked up. A surgeon
Maybe
who,
the 3 hours
They
before he
called-
got really
Right.
septic. Maybe
they,
it was
during the
okay.
trial, they called a surgeon as like a witness, like an expert witness.
Mhm.
And he testified that Brown had not left a large enough skin flap to properly cover the bone and the stump, and the flap was stretched too tightly to allow adequate blood flow,
Yeah.
and the tissue in the flap died, allowing for an infection of the Clostridium perfringens,
That's the bacteria that causes gas.
and
gangrene.
yes, producing gangrene.
Clostridium perfringens.
Sounds like
Well-
sounds like a painful death.
But it is an interesting discussion. Like, should a person have that much autonomy that they can just pay a doctor to do whatever to them?
that's like discussion. Like that's like the same thing with like assisted suicide.
Like how libertarian. Yeah, I mean, assisted suicide is the extreme of that.
I think assisted suicide is like more reasonable than
Well,
cutting off
Cutting
your
your
leg.
leg.
well, it
I
depends
agree.
what they want.
Well, I'm saying if it's someone who's dying and wants assisted suicide
Yeah, but
versus
what if someone is not dying? They just have this idea they want to be dead.
no, I
mean-
there's stages.
The question is, if he was a good surgeon and he didn't have those complications, well, should a surgeon be allowed to perform amputations at will?
I don't know, guys.
For money.
Let us know what you think.
No, you can't.
Or if you want to get your nose cut off completely?
It's just too much of a like. Once you cut off your leg, like you can't put it back on.
Maybe you can in the future. You never
I don't
know.
We'll see.
You know what I mean? And then like that affects everything in your life. Like later it'll affect your ability to make money, like have a job. Like later
But it makes you happy.
But if you have children later and it changes how you like your sense of mobility, like you wish you could run with them. Now your mental state has taken like there's too many extra factors. Do you know what I mean? Like assisted suicide is like you die, boom. There's no consequence.
There's no consequence.
Like there's no like future consequence to the person
Except you're being dead.
who had the autonomy. But-
Okay.
But like with this, it's like there's too many future unknown variables.
But what about chopping off your nose?
You don't chop. Who chops off their nose
Well,
voluntarily?
who chops off their leg voluntarily? I'm just saying.
I've never thought about it. I've never
Right.
like really even knew about it until I read this.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a weird discussion, but
We'd love
if
to
you're
hear.
listening, listen even closer now, because this Sunday is our trivia live on TikTok, and if you biddies have been waiting to get your biddies done, this is your chance. A winner will emerge, whether or not you're there. So be there
Be there.
and be prepared, because I'm coming with the hard hitting questions that I haven't even written yet.
And someone will win free plastic surgery by me.
Yes.
No,
And
by me.
An actual board certified plastic surgeon
Yes.
with 20 plus years experience
Yes.
and no
So, good luck.
experimentation.
And it'll be free. Like you won't have to barter and like
Yes.
surgically assist.
And it won't be in a house. It'll be in an actual sterile operating room.
Amen.
Amen.
So we'll see you guys on Sunday. And
Good luck.
Good luck. Thanks again for tuning in.